Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles, to be specific, everybody. Hello and welcome to Agree to Disagree here on the TNAM radio network. My name is Brian Engelman. I'm going to be your host, as I have been for the past 4 years. Thank you very much. Hey, new thing we just did, we monetized our YouTube site, so when you click on these shows after the fact, if you visit those links, I think the algorithm pays us more, which is a cool way for you to help us make some money. Click on some of those advertisers, leave them on there, don't close out of them. We get paid per minute. It's this whole interesting thing, but, you know, nobody's paying us to do this. So, you know, wouldn't it be great if our job was to try to take care of the world and our country and watch it succeed, as opposed to pulling out your hair begging, oh, please, God, no, why are you guys making these choices? You're going to screw everything up again. Stop it. And that's what we've been saying for a long time is, please, for the love of God, stop screwing this planet up. So anyway, we monetize the YouTube channel. So if you leave all those ads play, if you don't skip past that little intro clip, oh yeah, that's the other thing. So they have these little intro clips, and it's like, oh, come check out this new movie, and they'll play like, you know, sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes, you know, different lengths of videos. If you let those play, we make money because you just left that on the background until the show started. Or if it's at the end of the show, you let it play through. They're all little tricks. They're, you know, it's not tricks, it's advertising. They're trying to say, hey, a lot of people are checking out the New American Media, and we want to pay to reach that audience. So, you know, they're trying to pay us a little bit. It's not the best deal in the world by any stretch. However, we are young and growing, so please support us there. So, youtube.com/the New American Media. Click subscribe. On Twitter, we're at American_media_. Check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. On the right-hand side of the page is where you click TNAM Radio, and that is how you listen to us live. Underneath that is our Facebook feed as well, so you can follow us, like us, do all those things on social media, because you really will get different content from different sources. Our homepage has different stuff than our Twitter feed, than our Facebook feed, at different times, quicker, in different places, for different reasons. Join the conversation. I'm getting some good conversations over on the YouTube channels, and of course on Facebook. So just link up with us. And somebody we linked up with, we wanted to bring him into the program because met up with him working with Dan Johnson. His name's Alex Freeman. He's working on a bunch of different projects. We met through the Solutions Institute. So I figured, hey, you know, I'm checking out the work that he's doing with the Fifth Column and some other projects, and the stories that he's covering, including Homan Square, where it's been alleged by The Guardian that people are there in a black ops program, not being processed into the system, being tortured. A man was dead over there, trying to get some answers, and that it's being stonewalled. He went there to try to get answers, and that's why I said last week, hey, let's bring you on the show. Tell me what you learned down there, because it's a story a lot of people are paying attention to, but not as many are paying attention to it as they need to. Let's hurry up and either debunk this or expose this. Is this part of the National Defense Authorization Act with all these secret sites? You know, there's a reason people like us are concerned, because we know enough. We know that there are legitimate dangers from our own government who work for us. It's just rogue elements within our own government. Like these people are paid by us. You know, and when they're just harassing us to harass us, it gets to the point where it's like, we are going to change this system by changing you. Either changing the laws and regulations on what you can and can't do, enforcing the laws that already exist, or throwing the book at people, police officers that kill the public without any backup. You know, and that's been a lot of our conversation. You know, I wish I had video footage of Trayvon and Zimmerman. I wish I had video footage of Michael Brown. I wish that I had video footage, or I regret that I have video footage of Tamir Rice, of Eric Garner, of Kelly Thomas, of that camper, what was that, New Mexico, Arizona, that was shot and killed. And this week, over by Skid Row, a homeless person with an extensive criminal record was caught on the beginning of the camera fighting with police, and then about four police officers on top of him trying to tackle him, and one guy says he's got my gun or he's got a gun, and they shot him several times and killed him. You know, we got to talk about the level of violence that we're going to allow in our lives. So this is the first time actually really having an extended opportunity to talk with Alex Freeman, so let's just get him onto the show and get things started, shall we?
Hello?
Hello, Alex.
Speaking.
This is Brian Engelman. You are live on Agree to Disagree, sir. How you doing today?
Live already. I'm phenomenal. How are you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic, yes. And for the uninitiated, because my last guest, I did a sports show, and he's been doing my show for 3 or 4 years. I like to think I still say, "Hi, Zach, it's Brian. You're live on the air," because occasionally we'll start a conversation. You know how it goes, but that's the beauty of the internet. You know, we get to set and choose the level of polished product and reality that we want to show you. And I kind of dig letting people in on the nuts and bolts of how you plan shows, how you book guests, and I just think it's a trip.
Oh, but everything you see or hear or read on the internet is true, right? and the FCC doesn't care that we're having this conversation, right?
Oh, the FCC. What a power grab they think that they got the other day. Wow. While we were distracted, that thing kind of happened. Something I never told you, because we haven't really talked, have we, Alex? I was at a fundraising event, and Henry Waxman, former congressman of California, was there. And he said, this was years ago, this was when he was laughing about bringing a micro machine man into the walls of Congress because he was laughing at the Republicans and the people who opposed Obamacare, saying, can we read the information in here before we say, yeah, let's take over 1/6 of the economy first? He actually brought a speed reader. And he said it's that kind of special dirtbag I have to really set this premise up with, because what this little weasel said at this elite group of fundraisers at O.J. Simpson's old place was this. He said, net neutrality will be the culmination of our 100-year plan. And
I've seen that quote. I have seen that.
Well, he said it in front of me, and my jaw dropped, and I knew net neutrality was a trap from the beginning. So I want to get in and explore all these subjects, Alex. But first, I kind of want to set the audience up with you and who you are. I met you through the Solutions Institute. So let's start our story there. Yeah, let's start our story there. I want to stop talking, and I want to start listening to you. With Dan Johnson and the Solutions Institute, talk a little bit about where you were coming from, how you became affiliated with the group, and what your role was with ActCon and kind of launching the Solutions Institute.
I first became involved with the Solutions Institute before the Solutions Institute started. Dan and I began working together last summer when PANDA was doing its multi-city tour, and at that time, we were trying, and PANDA was trying to learn how to put on large-scale events. And so Dan and I got together to try to boost the public relations and the awareness of those events at that time. He knew that I did consulting work on the side for business planning and organization, in addition to marketing and public relations and writing. And that's how I became involved with Solutions Institute. He came to me with the idea, said, I want to get this started. And so we started planning and figuring out how to organize it, how to put it together, and how to get the word out there about it. Since then, of course, as I'm sure all of your listeners know, and you're very well aware, we put on the ActCon conference not too long ago, and we're starting to plan on the second one.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I participated helping keep this project organized, because I've done this a few times in my past, once with a very large concert, and I actually gave a little lecture in the beginning of ActCon, just kind of trying to relay some of my experiences booking shows. So what would you say, working with Dan last year and then helping plan ActCon and moving forward, for anybody that's out there as a liberty-minded activist, someone that just kind of wants to be left alone and they don't really like this creepy Orwellian nightmare that's lurching forward, if these people want to put on events, what did you learn about putting on live events that you didn't know before you got started?
About any event, really and truly is, whether it's a protest or a petition signing or an online conference, whatever the case may be, it takes a lot of work by a lot of people going on a very long time prior to the event taking place. It's not something that comes together in a week.
Yeah, you see the queen bee, but you don't know about the thousands back there that are doing so many different tasks. You know, no one person can do any of this stuff. It takes an enormous team. You know, and that's why I peeled back from doing events, actually. You know, I know very well how many different things need to go perfectly, and it's like you really need to have a very well-tuned machine. You know, and that's kind of where we're at with the new American media, not just my company. I'm talking about the new landscape of media in America. Talk a little bit about the fifth column and the projects that you're working on, because it seems like there's a heck of a lot of overlap in some of the stories you're covering, the stories we're covering, and it's good to see. It's good to see so many new outlets coming out. What is it that you guys, like, what's kind of your angle that you're coming from over on your sites?
Well, in the past couple of years, we've seen a rise in alternative media. And by and large, that media has taken on a couple of different aspects or characteristics. You've either got media on the absolute extreme right or media on the absolute extreme left, throwing out their partisan politics, etc. And then you have activist journalists, the We Are the Media crowd, the individuals with the camera phones taking pictures and uploading them to various social media sites. And the activist media tends to be, in its own right, of two different sorts. You've got those that just simply share and reblog headlines that they don't even read or fact check. And then you've got others that are originally written, but they tend to be a very, very short duration, 300 to 600 word articles. They don't tend to be very well investigated. And even though they have a large following and they're very influential and informative, they only scratch the surface. So the fifth column came around based on the idea that if adversarial journalism is going to exist, then we have to dig deep, get the research, do everything that your standard mainstream media outlets like the New York Times are doing, but present it in a more honest and truthful way than what those mainstream media outlets are doing. And so that's what the fifth column does. We still have the short articles. We still try to keep people informed of breaking news as it comes. But at the same time, we also try to investigate stories concerning things going on in the Middle East that the Washington Post or CNN aren't going to cover. We try to write things in a way that the USA Today just isn't going to. We try to go deeper than, and as much as I love the anti-media, I'm not trying to slam them, we try to go deeper than what the anti-media does or Net Press or any of those other columns do. And, the fifth column's only been around for about a month now, but already we have seen some amazing growth in our audience, and it's been very receptive. People have enjoyed the research that's gone into it, the work that our writers have done for it, and it's starting to make a difference. In any sort of adversarial situation, which quite frankly is what we find ourselves in, it's the journalists that are able to educate the general public.
That is a good point, that we really are the school teachers here. And we, regardless of what I want to see happen, I just want the right thing to happen. And you're so right about some of these stories, and either they don't get too far in depth, or the research they did was pretty sloppy and quick, and it was they were citing some junky reference. You got to be really careful. If you haven't seen it at least pop around some of the major news sites, that is a big red flag that it's very possible that you could debunk the story quicker. I'm not saying it means it's not true by, almost saying the opposite. The point is, you really have to be careful with the stuff that you're putting out there as like, hey, check this out, did you know this happened? If it's garbage. If you're going to put a questionable story out there, you should say, can we debunk this already? Or is there any truth to this? Because we want to have that conversation, because I think as people raise the questions, that back and forth, the new journalism, we're kind of our own research department in the comments section. It's really interesting how journalism has taken a turn. Is journalism something that you've always been involved with, Alex?
It has. I was involved in journalism when I was in middle school and high school, and I got away from it. I was actually advised as a teenager that if I was going to do journalism, don't go straight into a journalism or communications program. Go into a specialized field. Go into political science. Go into economics. Go into psychology. Go into something like that. And specialize in the topics that you are going to be covering, and then go cover them. As opposed to simply just learning how to write an article or put out a broadcast journalism piece. Go learn about the things that you're actually going to talk about instead of the trade that you're going to do. Anybody can learn a trade. It takes work, it takes skill, and a lot of people spend a lot of years perfecting that craft and the art of that craft. But it takes years and years to study the background, to read all of the journal articles and the libraries full of books that have been written on the specific topics that you're covering. And for adversarial and activist journalists, that's a lot of material.
I've said, man, the I can tell I'm getting smarter because my answers are more often, I don't really know for certain. I felt like maybe as a teenager I had it all figured out, and then at 20 and 30, and you start going, yeah, I used to think I had that question answered. Now I'm you can cover every topic underneath the sun. Let's take it all the way back to the main question humans ask each other: what are we doing on this planet? What happens when we pass away? We don't even have the answers to those two questions completely locked in with 100% certainty. 80% certainty, 60% certainty. I don't know. If you feel like going there before we get into Homan Square and some of the work that you've been done and some of the stories we've been tracking this week, what do you think the point is? Why are we here? Why are we here, and what happens when we leave here? Do you have any idea?
As you probably know, I have a background that includes associations with many members of Anonymous, and I'm going to adopt a tenet from their playbook and their script and say, I'm not going to speak for everyone. I can only speak for myself. That, I have no idea.
What a setup for nothing. I was like on the edge of my seat. All right, what's he got? Where's he going with this? No, I mean, it's just very interesting. Should we try to do good stuff while we're here, or does none of it matter? It's a total free-for-all. Let's break down some windows. It kind of has to start with, is there a point or is there no point?
Okay, see, there's the big problem. You're asking the wrong question there. The way that question is always framed is so general and so overbroad that it expects an overgeneral answer. Well, no, I don't know what the point of all of us being on this planet is. I don't know what the overall point of me being on this planet is. What I can say, if I reframe the question, is that I've got a couple of kids that I love dearly. I've got people in my life that have sacrificed an incredible amount for me to be successful. And for that, I owe them a debt of loyalty, and I am responsible for doing every single thing that I can to make sure that the sacrifices that they made weren't in vain, that they learn something today, that they benefit today, that my kids benefit tomorrow, and hopefully my kids and your kids are able to live in an environment and in a society that has less of the issues than we face today. I can't speak globally. All I know is that if my time on this planet were well spent, then my kids' time on this planet is going to be better spent.
I like that. I do like that, and I wonder sometimes, talking to other people that work with media outlets, is it, some people talk about karma and wonder, like, well, and I've joked around a ton of times about karma, that I must be paying something forward because now I got to try to help everybody out with all these wacky stories going on that could lead to lots of death and injustice and misery for regular people I've never met. I'm like, man, if karma's for real, what did I do the last time around so wrong that I gotta kind of take all this crap on my shoulders? Because, it just feels like if I don't say something, I can't really defend that I did everything I could have. Some people will join the military. That wasn't my path. There's a lot of people I know closely that have. I pray for them and hope the best and hope that their intentions are good, and I hope they're safe and that they protect our freedoms instead of take them. But that's my thing. I talk. I just figured I have an opinion on everything, it seems like, and sometimes we can be wrong, and we got to get more information. We got to keep the conversation going. So, over here at Agree to Disagree, the point is, man, well, let's talk about issues, and if we disagree on something, we say, hey, let's agree to disagree on that particular issue. We'll come back to that later. Like, if we don't really see eye to eye on that, like, we need to be able to have these conversations without them devolving into just name-calling. I'm okay with that.
On that, a long time ago, probably, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I became involved with a project called Project Unity. And Project Unity was developed in order to create a new Bill of Rights that would extend to, all of humanity. This covered things like free speech and free access to clean air, clean water, clean food. And, one of the things that I think about as I always come back to this project is that unity does not always require unanimity. We can disagree, but that doesn't mean that we cannot still form coalitions that reach across those lines when we see gross injustices attacking all of us.
I don't agree with the ACLU on every issue that they defend. There are many times where I absolutely do. It's okay. Like if you're on my team for that particular issue, all right, well, then you have wisely chosen your stance on that particular issue to get to the same point where we're at. Let's work on this, and let's not hate each other if we don't see eye to eye on abortion or taxes, or, you go down the line, everything's going to upset everybody if they want to allow that to happen. And I like more interesting conversations, and I think if you're, I don't know, I just like liberty. I just like being left alone. I think that it's obvious when you're being a menace to everybody else around you. You're kind of forfeiting some of those liberties because you're messing it up for the rest of us. But what's going on right now with the police state, with the surveillance grid, with you can't go a single day without seeing these things.
Liberty, civil liberties, stem directly from the First Amendment. There's a freedom of speech, there's a freedom of press, there's a freedom of association. But the converse of those freedoms are also true. I have the freedom to not listen to you if I don't want to. I have the freedom to not associate with you if I don't want to. And now we have this police state that is telling us not to speak, that refuses to listen to us. And so now it's beholden upon us to no longer associate with it.
No longer
associate. That is our liberty.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary, I should probably have it in front of me. Yeah, you have to alter.
We should all have it memorized.
Yeah, you should alter or change that government when it stops serving the needs of we, the people. And really, it's just rogue. It's out of control. It's blatantly violating so many of the amendments that we hold sacred. Whether it's going after ammo, whether it's going after the internet, and massive Fourth Amendment violating, sweeping search and seizure, and really posse comitatus being violated with the militarization of our police force. When you start connecting the dots, you start seeing a picture that don't look so good. You know, and the further you go down that rabbit hole, the more you realize you're right. You might not have all of the exact details figured out as far as who's doing what and for what reason, or you might be right for the wrong reason, wrong for the right reason. But more likely than not, most people that study this stuff realize we're looking at a lot of trouble coming our way. Would you say I'm pretty close to on the same page as where you're at, Alex?
We're right on the same page. The trouble isn't necessarily coming our way, though. The trouble is here. In 1999, 2000, and 2001, that's when a lot of activists really began springing up worldwide to protest the World Trade Organization and globalization efforts. And during that time, the events across the world brought hundreds of thousands of people to these protests. And they were violent. People died. And it may have only been 10 or 15 or 20 that died at the most in any given event with 250,000. But the point is, the police there exercised a great amount of brutality. I was reading about some trainings and organizations for one of those specific events today that occurred in Genoa, Italy. And it was a WTO event, and the Genoan and Italian police forces were actually trained in crowd control and crowd containment by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And this is back in 2001. Don't quote me on the date.
Decade and a half ago, roughly.
It was a local United States police force training a national police force in Europe on how to handle this situation. And reading this told me that the problems that we're facing today, Americans that are just now waking up to the fact that we're in a world of hurt, we're 15, 20 years behind.
We are behind the curve drastically.
The trouble is already here. We've just been too busy watching Real World, Road Rules, America's Next Top Model, and crap like that. American Idol. Take your pick.
Well, I guess my pick is probably sports. It's pretty clear. It's saying that Atlanta is beating the Cavs 53-38 with 2:05 left in the second, playing on the road for the Cavs. Yes, I tend to keep my distractions on sports, except my sports teams are all from Cleveland, the Indians, Cavs, and Browns. So they bring me nothing but ultimate misery and heartache and heart attacks and frustration and pain and hurt and sorrow. So while most people retreat to sports for a brief little escape from the horrible stories in the world, I have to go to politics sometimes to get away from sports. It's actually pretty ridiculous. But yeah,
we'll agree to disagree on that one. No, I actually saw somebody's post in my news feed as soon as I turned on Facebook yesterday at one point that was talking about whatever basketball game, and I was like, how did I friend this guy? What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I put my hand up. You know, I'll tell you one thing that I've talked with a lot of people about this. I do have a legitimate care. You know, being in Los Angeles, I've been out here for about 9 years, 10 years, something like that. You know, and it's a nice way to kind of remember where you're from. You know, born and raised outside, 30 minutes outside of Cleveland, going to school about 2 hours away, right by Dan Johnson, by the way. Although I didn't know him at the time. It's a nice way to stay connected with my old friends and I am a big sports fan anyway. I always played. But here's the thing. I hope that can be the Trojan horse for some of these people to bring them in and talk to them about, hey, kids, wasn't that an awesome Cavs game? I think LeBron's the real MVP over Curry this year. Yeah, maybe Harden, but I think LeBron has it. By the way, did you know that there's a group of people trying to take over this entire planet? And they're spying on your cell phones and everything you say and do and where you go with GPS? Maybe I can invite a couple of those people into the conversation through that on-ramp. Maybe not.
It's probably easier with the NFL being a tax-deductible organization or a tax-free organization.
Yeah, can you believe that one? Can you believe that one? Tax exempt. Uh-huh. Yeah, they're providing a vital service. Although I did just talk...
Games and circuses, my friend. Games and circuses. Or bread and circuses.
Let them eat cake. Yeah, but I was actually just talking to the former NBA scout friend of mine, Zach, and he was just talking about how the LA Live area totally revitalized, a busted down downtown and kind of made it nicer, fixed a lot of things up, and it does serve a purpose to the community, and it makes things nicer, lowers crime. However, actually, let's just start with that. There was a shooting right over there, right by Skid Row. I mean, not right next door, but, downtown L.A. What's the latest on this one? I watched the video. It looked like he was the deceased was in a scuffle, an altercation, a wrestling match with a police officer, and then there were about 3 of them. A gun went off. The guy was killed, and then it came out he had some kind of record for he wasn't who he said he was, and he was convicted of bank robbery and a whole. What do you have on this latest story? Because I try to take it so slow on the Michael Brown, on the Trayvon Martin, on the Eric Garner, the Tamir Rice, Kelly Thomas. I try to just go slow till I really have all the information in front of me. What are we looking at with this one?
Well, the initial video that I saw was within an hour of the shooting. And from what I can tell, it was a raw and uncut video. As the week has progressed, I have seen 5 different total variations of this video, whether it be from security cameras on the street or slow motion versions of the same video or zoomed in versions of the same video. And at this point, I'm inclined to believe that whatever this man's history, which the police would not have known at the time, that given the number of officers that were present, there is no reason that lethal force should have been necessary. Now, the video also doesn't show, and I still haven't been able to find a clear-cut answer as to why they were there in the first place, but there were a lot of officers there for an unknown reason.
What I had heard that him, the deceased, and there was a woman on scene that they were accused of stealing something from a local store right there. That was what I heard.
And I've heard that those people that were there, and you can see from the video that their camps are pretty comfortably set up there. It's not like they just happen to throw their crap down and have a seat. But those are pretty comfortable camps that they had set up. It had taken some time to set up. I've seen reports where they had good relationships with the businesses there and actually helped the businesses in warding off people that might do horrible things. They were respectful. They and the shop owners had a positive arrangement for them being out in front.
And one of the things we know for sure is that the guy's dead. That's what we can say for sure. And
we know that the guy is dead, that there happened to be a lot of people around this altercation and a whole lot of cops. And I'm not certain as to what type of self-defense classes the Los Angeles Police Department takes, but reasonably speaking, as a reasonable human being, I would have to assume that you would have to take some of those classes as a cop. And if you had 4 or 5 or 6 individuals against one guy that was on the ground, lethal force would not be necessary.
Because the story was, and you can see where there's a few people leaning in. At one point, you start hearing one of I think it's one of the officers yelling, "I dropped my gun," or "He got my gun." It's a little tough to make out. It sounds like either he dropped his gun and the guy got it, or the guy dropped it and he didn't know if he could have it, or that the guy did wrestle his gun away from him, or the guy was trying to wrestle his gun away from him. I don't know. It seemed like one of the officers was no longer in possession of his firearm. And it reminded me of an altercation I had with the LAPD a couple years ago. I was at a friend's house. There was a gathering. They wanted everybody out of there. I was staying at my friend's house. They started giving me grief. Actually grabbed my arm and almost threw me down a flight of stairs. I was wearing flip-flops. It was like some middle of the summer party. I had like this goofy Hawaiian shirt and sandals, and I'm just hanging out at my buddy's place drinking a glass of water. And he almost throws me down the flight of stairs, and I said, "Hey, don't throw me." Now what happened was my friend inside, and that was the only reason they stopped. I yelled, "Don't throw me down the stairs." And all the other cops stopped and turned around, and the guy said, "Well, you need to go downstairs then." Because he was ready to hip check me. This guy was about 6'5", about 270. He was a big dude. Anyway, the guy inside, he was filming these police that were roaming through and searching his place. They use that garbage line of, we got a report that there's an underage person here. No, you didn't get a report. You're making this up because if there's a noise complaint, there's a difference. So he's filming the police officers walking through his apartment, and when they get down the hallway, the one cop turns to him because he's very annoyed he's being filmed. This was 3 years ago or something. Very annoyed that he's getting filmed, and he yells, "Get away from his gun! Get away from his gun! Back up from his gun!" I think he was going to crack him in the skull and break his phone and arrest him for assaulting an officer down a dark hallway, except somebody opened up that back door at that exact time and stopped him from doing it. I'm convinced that's what was going to happen. So, I mean, either way, as we try to still watch the details emerge from this killing in Los Angeles this past week, people don't have faith or respect in our local police officers anymore.
No.
What are we supposed to do about that going forward?
And well, let's take that example of the party that you were at. The cops came in with a trumped-up probable cause of the potential of an underage drinker there. And that's exactly the reverse of what we have in Chicago right now, is that the people have probable cause that something nefarious is going on there, and we have issued the people's version of a warrant based on probable cause to the city of Chicago, to the Chicago police force, and they refuse to open up the facility at Homan Square. They are doing so using force and superior, more armed numbers. The people's warrants are being ignored, and it's the armed guard standing in between us and the big building to prove that these allegations that came out through The Guardian are either true or false.
And let's talk about what those allegations were. For the people that are a little late to this story, I had Bobby Rodrigo on last week, also from Solutions Institute. I'm trying to meet all of these people that I've kind of met over the past couple of months here, and I use air quote met because we haven't really. But yeah, we talked about Homan Square last week, so for the people that still aren't aware what's going on, let's kind of hit reset and give us the facts, as much of them as we have right now, on what's going on in Chicago.
All right. 2 weeks ago, The Guardian, a United Kingdom news outlet, broke the story that there was a black site operating in the city of Chicago from the Chicago Police Department. The black site was run in part by a gentleman that was retired from the U.S. military, who actually served at Guantanamo Bay, where they legitimately tortured prisoners of war, many of which, as the Select Senate Intelligence Committee report came out, were actually innocent. And so this guy retires from the Army, comes into Chicago, works for the Chicago Police Force, and sets up shop in Homan Square, where they house the organized crime division, along with evidence lockers, etc. And reports come out that the Chicago Police Department is arresting and detaining people indefinitely without access to a lawyer, without booking them, and in some cases, torturing them to the point of death.
Yeah, there was one person that did die at that facility. We know that much. Someone was removed from their dead. recently, right?
Correct.
We don't know if it was natural causes. We don't know the circumstances exactly.
Oh, no, it was heroin overdose.
Heroin overdose, okay.
The story surrounding this was that he was taken in from purchasing heroin from an undercover officer. And it was while he was in the facility that he died from a heroin overdose.
Huh. Okay, doesn't sound suspicious at all.
No, not a bit, because typically speaking, I don't know, I've never done heroin myself.
Same here, thankfully.
But you know, I've seen Train Spotting. I've had a lot of friends that did heroin.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know I can point at several people in jail or dead because of heroin, and it's horrible.
But if
okay,
they're
who's trying?
high,
Who's
they don't
I gotta
exactly
find
go
out.
out.
Hold on, I gotta figure out who's dragging a couch behind you.
Sorry,
Is it an elephant? Is there an elephant trying to nudge his way through a hallway?
No, it's a home health care situation.
Okay. Fair enough. No, I was just curious. Okay, so the guy died of heroin. We know that. Now, it is possible, I guess I would instantly think, maybe he could have shot up his own product to try to make it happen, knowing he was going to jail, and then it kicked in once he was in the facility, or not. So it's either one or the other. What do you think happened there? What information do we have as far as what we think happened in that person's death?
Well, at this point, we've got almost 10 people that have come forward with nearly the exact same story of the conditions inside Homan Square, of how long they were detained, of why they were detained, and being released without any substantial real charges. The reports have indicated that the Chicago Police Department has not exercised due diligence in even finding the right people. And so the practices overall are exceptionally questionable. The fact that anybody would be, or any American would be detained, regardless of whether it was John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, or the worst child rapist you've ever seen.
Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah, think Ariel Castro, think of all these creeps.
They're still Americans. We still have the Bill of Rights, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Theoretically.
You'd think.
Then, if that's the case, then them being detained at all without booking, without access to a lawyer, without any due process, it's a violation of so many rights that this is not acceptable in this country.
Absolutely not.
It's just not how this country is run.
People need to go to jail if what's happening is true. People need to be brought up on charges.
So here we have.
But where's the Rahm Emanuel Barack Obama connection? Because you have the National Defense Authorization Act, you have him not closing Guantanamo, you have his lackey Rahm Emanuel go to Chicago, and then all this stuff starts happening as we start talking about FEMA camps, we start talking about martial law, all of this stuff.
That's the exact question that I asked in my article for the fifth column. We've got all sorts of outlets describing the state of Homan Square and interviews with people coming out of Homan Square, the few that have made it out alive. And my question was, where is the media? Where are the politicians? And as far as Rahm Emanuel is concerned, Rahm Emanuel got his start as a fundraiser for Bill Clinton back in the early 90s.
Nothing shady about that administration at all.
None whatsoever.
Weren't
Hillary Clinton served on the Watergate.
weren't they the most transparent presidency ever until Obama? It's kind of ridiculous.
I love trying to see through mud.
Exactly.
So then he's in Congress. He helps Barack Obama rise to fame very quickly, way too quickly for anyone's real comfort, and serves as National Security Advisor. Well, the National Security Advisor to the President, or not National Security Advisor, Chief of Staff to the President is going to have just as high of a security clearance as the President, with the exception of nuclear launch codes.
Yeah. So then what do you do with the guy that has everything? Okay, let's do the National Defense Authorization Act, right?
Correct. So, well, the NDAA has been around for years. It's only grown more nefarious in the past 5 to 10. However, the distributions of military equipment to local law enforcement agencies has been going on since the early 90s. And that was under Bush 1. But suddenly you've got the
1021 and 1022, that a person can be detained indefinitely without charge, without trial, and that the United States is now a battlefield. Oh, okay.
Correct.
This just got real weird, guys. This just got real weird with your National Defense Authorization Act because, yeah, it's a common thing that's passed every year, but this particular year was particularly dangerous and possibly nefarious if in the wrong hands.
And now you've got the mayor of the third largest city in the country with an exceptional security clearance, years worth of contacts at the CIA, at the NSA, Department of Homeland Security, and suddenly this former Army or Navy guy comes up from Guantanamo Bay and starts working in a police force there, and lo and behold, CPD has a black site that is the equivalent of Abu Ghraib.
Let me ask you this. Alex, do you think that our country has been hijacked? And if so, when do you think this actually happened?
Oh, now that's $1 million question, but is it $1 million backed by the Federal Reserve or is it $1 million backed by gold?
I knew we were going to Jekyll Island because there's a few different places. You can say back to FDR. We haven't had a real president since then. You could say since Woodrow Wilson sold us down the river in a bill of goods with the Federal Reserve private banking cartel. You could say, maybe it was the Gulf of Tonkin, or maybe it was Nixon taking us off the gold standard, or maybe it was...
It was long before that. George Washington saw the flaws of the two-party system, and his number two man, Alexander Hamilton, was the guy that envisioned a Federal Reserve and was the first to institute a credit default swap style of security exchange. Alexander Hamilton, as Secretary of the Treasury, bought a bond, an Articles of Confederation bond, from everyone in the country. If the bond was worth $100 at the time of purchase, he went to that person and said, "I'll buy it from you for 10." Well, the Articles of Confederation were no more by this point. These people were holding junk, so $10 was a great benefit. As Secretary of the Treasury, he took all of this, repackaged it as United States debt, and sold it to foreign corporations and made a mint. This is Alexander Hamilton. This is back in the 1780s and 1790s.
Have you ever listened to Jordan Maxwell talk about some of this stuff?
No, I have not.
Very interesting. We interviewed him maybe 2 years ago. It's very interesting stuff if you get the chance. So basically you're saying that we don't have media and we don't have politicians covering this thing in Chicago. Is that because there's nothing to see there? Or because there's no way that somebody wouldn't want this real story bad enough to actually get it if it were there, right?
Well, what happens if the real story does come out? How much chaos ensues if the real story comes out?
Maybe a little bit.
So, that's a valid question. Rahm Emanuel has stayed quiet on this. His opponent, Jesus Chui, has stayed quiet on this. The media has stayed quiet on this. Chicago Tribune, one of the biggest news outlets in the country, sat on this story for 2 or 3 days before actually covering it. Last Saturday, the reporter that was there didn't even really know why she was there. She was a low-level staff writer, which I got to give her credit. Being a low-level staff writer at the Chicago Tribune is pretty big. But she had no idea what was going on, hadn't heard of the Guardian story, went to the event completely unresearched and uneducated about what was going on.
Huh. Did you try to actually educate her on that? That's interesting.
For what little time I did.
Wow.
There was a lot of stuff going on, didn't have much time with all of the people. I do have that encounter on video, but at her request, I am keeping it quiet.
Right. What where is all that content located? Let's make the pitch real quick.
Well, yeah, we've got a lot of this content available at www.thefifthcolumnnews.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Fifth Column News and also on YouTube at the Fifth Column News.
Okay, so you have all this information. You actually went out there to see what was going on. Are you going to be there again, or what was last weekend? What was the numbers of people you would guess, and what do we think is going to happen this weekend?
Well, there were a couple of hundred people there last weekend. I was running all over the place, talking to the one candidate that was there was running for alderman, and even she reassured me a little bit that at least the people in the community knew what was going on, and we had members of the community there out supporting it. And that's one of the things about this event that I'm really proud of, is that people from all walks of life, all organizations, all branches, all political viewpoints came out to support this. Still, the person representing the area was rather ignorant as to what was going on there.
This weekend, people will have more time, hopefully, to have researched the story. What do you expect? Are you going to be down there, or are you just going to follow it, or what?
No, I am. I'm in debates right now. I am currently 3 hours away from Chicago, and
wait, what FEMA region is that technically?
Oh crap! I have no idea.
I'm in FEMA Region 9. If you want to send me a postcard, by the way, just so you know, FEMA Region 9. That's where I'll be.
I'm within 150 miles of a border region, so it's a constitutional exemption zone. I know that.
Huh. Okay. Well, anyway, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and we'll keep following that story this weekend.
At this point,
one way or another,
I do need to be there tomorrow. I'm still working out the logistics of getting there.
Gotcha. Well, we'll keep our eyes on that. Did you something we didn't have a chance to talk about, but it was an interesting story. Did you see where the NSA building was shot?
I did.
What did you make of that? Because that's the agency that's so blatantly violating our Fourth Amendment rights to be left alone. That it's bordering on treasonous behavior to just swoop up the massive amounts of information on Americans that they're getting. And somebody took a shot at the building. Can you tell us what we know about that?
There's not much that's been reported that I've seen. Every report that I've seen shows a lot of shootings from interstates and drive-bys, et cetera. I think the bigger story this week is less the shooting of that particular building. That, from everything that I can tell, whether it's manipulated by mainstream media or what, it's just kind of an isolated event. The bigger story, and this came out today, I don't know that anybody's really had a chance to cover it yet, is that the CIA is going to be restructuring.
Yeah, and what's going on with that?
CIA is redoing its administrative hierarchy and its chain of command, and they are adding a fifth directorate for cyber intelligence and cyber security, which means that everything online is, if it wasn't controlled by the NSA, it's now controlled by the NSA and CIA.
The Cyber Intelligence and Cyber Security, what? czar? What are they calling him?
It's going to be the Directorate of Cyber Intelligence, I believe. So you've got the Chief Director of the CIA, and then Director of Operations, Director of Intelligence, and now you'll have Director of Security.
What do you make of all this? What do you make of all this happening within about a week or two? You have the takeover. You have ObamaNet. If you like your internet, you can keep it. The FCC just passed this stuff, and do we still even know what's in those 332 pages? Did we ever get a good look at this? No. 2 weeks later.
Nope.
We don't even know.
Well, and supposedly that is publicly available. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet because the Homan Square stuff came up. What else has gone on? We've got Benjamin Netanyahu making...
Oh, hold on. Let's get to Netanyahu in a second, because I think we can work General David Petraeus and Hillary Clinton in here, because you have people involved in scandals that either they wouldn't play ball or they got blackmailed or they're going down. Menendez, this Democratic senator. We've seen a lot of dominoes start to clickety-clack. What do you make of the
Petraeus and Hillary? There's been a lot of news in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. So talk about what we know about Petraeus, Hillary, and whatever the third thing I said was.
Well, we know Petraeus accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty to discussing over email to his biographer and lover secrets inside the CIA. These are the same crimes that Edward Snowden is accused of, who is also now trying to come back to America on the hopes that he's going to get a free and fair trial. I'm going to make this statement, and I could be wrong, but if Edward Snowden is the hero, American hero that activists around the world hope he is, he's going to keep his happy ass outside of this country. If Edward Snowden is the loyal opposition that I personally think he is, then he's going to continue working this legal angle and come back home and work out a plea deal and plead guilty for telling the truth about some unconstitutional things that have been going on for a long time inside of these borders.
Well, there was that Jodi Arias thing where she, twice now they couldn't convict to kill her, the woman that's savagely beaten, killed, and almost decapitated, and then stabbed, and then punched, and then she killed him 20 different times. I'm exaggerating, but they couldn't find her guilty with a death penalty twice. All it takes is one ideologue to kick the whole trial out. But yeah, the question is this going to be some sort of secret court that's stacked and rigged, or are you going to give this to the American people and give them a chance to have 12 people sit in a room and go, yeah, the NSA is up to some bullshit?
Well, let's take that exact same question. Are we going to give this up to the American people to make the judgment? Well, the American people have made the judgment on Homan Square, for instance, and the city of Chicago has said, no, your warrants mean nothing to us.
You've petitioned your government for a redress of grievances.
And they said, we're going to put armed guards outside of this building and keep you from going in.
That's right. You plagiarized in that one piece, if I recall correctly, that you wrote for the fifth column, right?
I did indeed, and proudly so.
What was that document you plagiarized? I forget the name of it.
I believe it was called the Declaration of Independence.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, actually,
and at this point, I'm pretty sure that the Trans-Pacific Partnership and TPIP copyright laws don't extend to it. I can quote that as common usage.
Copyright protected. You can't quote the Second Amendment. No, man, someone owns that. We got to pay an estate. No, we have to pay a family royalties.
I invite every single one of your listeners, as soon as they hear this, to pull up a copy of the Declaration of Independence and read every single one of the grievances that were levied against King George at the time. And I want you to think, which one of those currently apply today? I want you to go through the first 10 Bill of Rights, and I want every single listener to look at all 10 Bill of Rights and think, how is each one of these being violated? My personal favorite, and I invite this, I think this is a great discussion, I want to see this discussion erupt in this country, is the Third Amendment. Nobody ever talks about the Third Amendment. It's the one about quartering soldiers in our homes. But guess what? If the NSA and the CIA and the FBI and Department of Homeland Security and any one of 17 intelligence agencies or 24 or 72 intelligence agencies that this country has, not including all of the corporate intelligence that's going on, have access to every single thing that's on your smartphone, your tablet, your computer, all of your text message records, everything, how is that not being quartered in your home? It's certainly not being secured in your papers and effects. It's certainly not allowing you freedom of speech. It's not allowing you freedom of association. There's no probable cause. You're not getting any due process.
I had John B. Wells. He was on the program maybe 2 weeks ago or something now. John was also on the ActCon with the solutionsinstitute.org. He gave a lecture as well. But yeah, on the show, he was telling me how earlier in the day, I think he had Mark Dice on the program, and they talked about something, so he went to the CIA website earlier in the day. And we had our phone call drop off, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 different times with John. And I said, thanks. You go visit the CIA website that day, and you leave radioactive breadcrumbs leading him back to here. And I said that kind of jokingly, but really, guilt by association, well, I don't know if he was a terrorist, but he was associating with known terrorists. What could that mean? That could mean anything. And you look at all these people in the media, we have contacts and we have sources and we have people all over the world. It doesn't mean that we're encouraging or rooting for any particular sort of criminal activity. But that's the broad, vast conspiracy of this all. It's not designed to go in Afghanistan or Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya. It's designed for the people here. It's the barbed wire pointed in so we can't get out. That's what we have.
And I've got this video on the Fifth Column's YouTube channel. Captain Ryan of the Chicago Police Department is the head of the Organized Crime Division housed at the Homan Square facility. He was the one in charge there last Saturday. And every single one of them had their organized crime patches on their uniforms. And that was my biggest question to him is, do you really think that we're organized crime? Do you think that we're terrorists? Scott Walker thinks that workers are terrorists. Do you think that we're terrorists by being here, by wanting to find out what's going on inside of this facility? And he refused to debate me on the issue. But I think the point remains.
I am shocked to learn that gambling is occurring here. I'm shocked he would not engage you in that conversation. I am shocked, I tells you. Yeah, not so much. Cockroaches hate sunlight. And that's the thing. There are a lot of good people that are actually right now on the inside. There are people that have access. They can become whistleblowers. They can do their part to stand up, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Well, now's the time to do it. I also asked the representatives of 3% that were there why more people in the military weren't.
Explain 3%. Explain who 3% is. Were there Oath Keepers too?
Yes. 3% and Oath Keepers are two organizations that are very closely aligned. They are largely active duty and retired military that believe in upholding the Constitution. They believe in our liberties, and they believe in supporting the Constitution. And I asked them, why aren't more of your guys here now? Why aren't more of your guys defecting? And the 3% representative that answered the question said, I have the same question. I want to know the same answer. And it's disappointing. It's time for everybody with a badge, everybody with a commission or a rank to turn around and say, enough is enough. This has gone too far.
Nobody will... And that's the trick. People are not going to fire on their neighbors necessarily, but if you have these different groups that really have no loyalties, it is so important that, yeah. And I've had Stuart Rhodes on the program, founder of Oath Keepers, and I talked to a few out at Bundy Ranch last year. Went and investigated to see what was going on out there, and if the people holding the weapons are not going to take the unconstitutional order didn't happen. All it means is that the person that just gave it can be arrested, and the people stand down. The distributors of force can stand down, and we don't need things to go into some sort of apocalyptic nightmare. We don't need a battle royal busting out in all of this country or across this world.
And really and truly, that's where the idea of the 3% came from, is the theory that it only takes 3% of the country to stand up against the government in order for the government to back down.
And what are we standing up for? It's like, just read the instruction manual of how this machine is supposed to run and just do that stuff. Like, it's very basic. Either you're part of a group that's already taken over the country and you're usurping our liberties, or you've just kind of lost your way a little bit, or got a little cocky, or got a little greedy. Okay, you can put up your hands, surrender, and we can hit reset. That's fine. We just have to determine, what is it? Which one of the options is it? Are they in on the evil, or are they just unaware? Are they dumb? Or are they true patriots that just want to, defend this nation and fight for people we don't know to just be left alone? It's pretty basic to me. I don't know, but we see all these things going on. What did you make of Ferguson? What did you make of Eric Holder, the the disgraced Attorney General that... Well, he's on his way out, and then they just said, well, we looked at the case in Ferguson, and we didn't see enough to go after.
We investigate ourselves, and we have we didn't find anything wrong.
Well, kind of. Ferguson investigating itself in the grand jury could be said that way, but it seemed like from the beginning Holder was very against the option of letting Officer Wilson resume his life. He seemed to have made up his mind, along with Al Sharpton and Barack Obama, early that there was some sort of racial crime that happened, and they were trying to prove that narrative as opposed to gathering facts and determining the case.
We can agree to disagree on this one, because I know I have a slightly different opinion on this.
No, but I would like to hear it at this point, and I'm okay with that.
But I think the racism issue is a smokescreen for everything else. I think racism is a smokescreen for what we're doing in the Middle East. I think racism is a smokescreen for what's going on in Africa. I think racism is a smokescreen for what's going on in the Ukraine. I think racism is a smokescreen for what's going on inside of Ferguson and inside of Chicago. I don't think it's solely about race. I think race is what is being put forth as part of the propaganda to spin the issue into something that it's not.
On that, we agree 100%. On that, we agree.
We're not going to get Darren Wilson on murder, but we are going to say that 3 officers only three, in the Ferguson Police Department are guilty of some pretty racist things in emails, and that makes them unfit to serve. Well, let's look at the whole city council of the city of Ferguson. How representative are they of that city? They're not. They're all white. And the city is 81% black.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's look at the fact that police brutality in this country is not limited to the city of Ferguson. The incident in L.A., that was black on black.
Yeah, we would have never heard about it.
It was police against the people. And it's happening in Cleveland, it's happening in Columbus, it's happening in Ferguson, it's happening
What did you
make
of Tamir Rice? I think out of all of these, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Kelly Thomas case in Fullerton, California, where he was killed on camera. Do you remember that one?
Kelly Thomas.
Yeah, he was.
Eric Garner was in New York. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of.
I know,
There's so many of them.
It's terrible. But he was the guy in California, and he was sitting on a curb. The officer was above him, putting on latex gloves, saying, "You see these fists? They're getting ready to f you up." And then they beat him to death on camera in a pool of blood on camera as he's crawling out for his father. I would say that one was probably the worst. I would say John Crawford. In the Walmart in Beaver Creek, Ohio, was really terrible. These people just flew in there and blew him away, gave him no chance to do anything, which was ridiculous because he hadn't harmed anybody yet.
Eric Garner in New York.
Tamir Rice
John
and
Crawford
Eric Garner as well.
Tamir Rice. And I'm going to go so far as to say Tamir Rice because it wasn't just Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy. It was also his sister that got beaten up and thrown into a car and arrested for it. And here's a wonderful question that until this week I hadn't even thought of. Ohio is an open carry state. And when you see the video of the Tamir Rice incident, a cop car speeds into a park. The cop gets out of the front, pulls around with the door still open and the car almost still rolling, and starts unloading lead into this kid. Ohio's an open carry state, and no one has a chance to simply say, what are you doing? What's going on? Let's stop. Let's think. And then let's act.
My understanding is that officer was fired from a previous police job for being unfit to serve, mentally unstable. What were the exact? I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, but he had been bounced from his previous job for.
Yeah, he was mentally incapable of performing the duties of the post, I think is what it was.
And then they just shuffle him over. It's like, all right, now you have him. Yeah, that was probably not the best way to handle that situation. And we see it happening all over the place. This stuff. Let's talk on a larger scale, though. Back to Netanyahu, because I know you started getting to that, and we're getting close to that time where we're going to wrap it up over here. But this is something that really I had no idea that so many people feel so strongly about this issue. When I grew up, I never. For the first 10, 15 years of your life, you don't really pay much attention to politics. All you know is that the Middle East is always blowing the Middle East up. Everybody's always killing each other in the Middle East. That's all they do. And the whole thing with Netanyahu and Israel and Obama and Iran and nuclear weapons and ISIS, we have some real crap on the horizon right now. So, what was your take on the Netanyahu speech?
My take on the Netanyahu speech, I actually did a live blog of it. All of that entire live blog is on the Fifth Column Facebook page. Plus, I have an in-depth article going over it on the fifthcolumnnews.com. But to summarize, my entire take on it is that Benjamin Netanyahu is a hypocrite, and that the people running this country are running this country for a foreign government. They are not representing you. They are not representing me. Benjamin Netanyahu's entire point was that under no circumstances should the United States or any international coalition allow Iran to develop any sort of nuclear program for energy or weapons making or water reclamation or anything that nuclear technology can accomplish. He cited numerous acts of aggression of the state of Iran. He claimed militant Islam as a major foe and put a lot of spin on history. He put a lot of spin on current events. And ultimately, what he ignored was that Israel, since its inception in 1948, has been the aggressor in more than one occasion of all of the wars in the Middle East. He failed to mention that even though the UN Nuclear Regulatory Agency, the IAEA, has been unable to ascertain the true nature of Iran's nuclear program and has felt misled by the state of Iran, the IAEA has also been incredibly misled by the state of Israel. In fact, Israel is suspected to have a hydrogen bomb, in fact, developed by the United States. That has never been confirmed. The world does not know how many nuclear weapons the country of Israel has. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, don't let Iran become nuclear, all the while hiding his own country's nuclear capabilities while engaging in multiple acts of aggression against Palestine and Gaza. I found the entire thing hypocritical. I found the sycophants in Congress that were pandering to him and applauding him at extended length to be entirely unrepresentative and therefore unfit to represent any single American any moment longer. And I refuse to believe that anything that amounts to Israel's position will lead to good. At the end of the whole speech, the bottom line is whatever happens with Iran, the state of Israel has vowed to act aggressively and preemptively in a military fashion that could lead to severe consequences for not only military personnel but also civilians on the ground, not just in the countries that they act against, but if it goes nuclear, potentially the entire world.
And how do you see this all playing in with Ukraine? And I'll just say this, like when you hear stories and you see things of the constant rockets being thrown at Israel, and it's like, man, I would reach out eventually and just smack them down. And then, of course, you got to go back for 50 years, 60 years, and try to understand how Israel was created, all the history of it, what's really going on in Gaza. It's, I don't know. I guess I'm a little less interested in trying to figure out
the city of
how
Detroit
it happened as opposed to how do we negotiate a truce?
Very good parallel.
Hold on. I guess I'm just saying, like, how do we negotiate a truce? What went wrong? What can legitimately be done to fix this? How can we just calm this crap down? Is it possible without complete annihilation? Like, that's kind of where I'm at mentally. I can't really understand it any more than I can currently. I just want it to stop.
Is water a human right? Do you think that water is a human right?
Like the places in the Northwest that ban you from collecting it off your own roof into a water barrel? I mean, I don't know. I think it is. I think you should be able to get it, yeah.
Okay, then if you were cut off from all of your water supply, would you not have a violent reaction?
Well, in Detroit, they had to cut off about 20. I forget the exact percentage. They had to cut off a lot of the city because they weren't paying their bill and they couldn't maintain their infrastructure, and that got everybody to start paying their way. You have a bill, you got to pay it. So I don't know the circumstance. Why was it cut off? Just an act of war, an act of retaliation, an act of pressure?
Gaza's water has been shut off on numerous instances just because. Every time a rocket is thrown from Gaza or Palestine into Israel, it's possible that water gets shut off. They've done it on a number of occasions. Every occasion that they shut off the water gets another guy pissed off enough to throw a rocket. It's a vicious circle. The state of Israel does not recognize the human rights of the people that live there. And until those human rights are recognized and honored, there is no way that any compromise can be reached.
And so you have ISIS doing what they're doing. Have you seen the new Ben Swan piece on ISIS, the roots and the origin?
I haven't.
Yeah, you should take a look. We interviewed Ben.
How many brain cells am I going to lose to look at that?
In which respect?
It's Ben Swan.
I don't know. I think he does good work. Are you not a fan, you would say?
If he and David Icke were at a dinner party, I think I'd be at a bar down the street.
Hold on. Are we really talking to reptilians and we're going down that?
No. I'm just saying it's Ben Swan, David Icke, and Alex Jones are three people that I refuse to pay attention to.
Yeah. Who are three of your favorites?
Brian Engelman, Alex Freeman, and Justin King.
Hey,
no,
flattery will get you everywhere.
Can't count myself. Nick Burnaby.
Flattery will get you everywhere. No, okay. So aside from the other people kind of doing the same thing that you're doing, like on a national stage, that have been around for a decade or two, who are some of the names that you actually do follow? People that you respect a little bit more.
I really don't, because it's a fluid situation.
Right.
And just because somebody has a great analysis on one particular event doesn't mean that they can't have a completely flawed analysis on a second. Absolutely.
But that's, you're speaking like a critical thinking human being. That's a little rare to kind of encounter these days. People that are willing to consider the fact that we might not have all the info and that not everybody is perfect on every issue. It doesn't mean you cut your nose off to spite your face. But anyway,
just because somebody has gotten famous does not mean I'm going to automatically give them authority. It doesn't work like that. But anyway.
No, I think everybody needs to earn the trust. I mean, look at Brian Williams. He went from being one of the biggest names to a laughing stock because what did you do to get there, man? You're tchotching around and making shit up. Like, that will catch up with you at some point. I try to source accurate information. I try to be factually correct, and when it's opinion, I offer what I have at the moment. You know, sometimes I could do it more eloquently. Sometimes I would go back and change some of those thoughts, but that's being human. You know, nobody hits a 1,000% in baseball. You hit 3 out of 10 times, and you're in the Hall of Fame. You know, it's a higher standard in journalism. Just being famous, it's like you got to continue delivering facts, or else you got to go. So I guess wrapping ISIS up with Ukraine and Russia, how do you see what is going on this chessboard? How do you see Libya, Syria, Hillary, Obama, Bush, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Israel? How do we connect this stuff? What do you see happening here? How do you, like, if you looked in your crystal ball, what do you see happening with Ukraine? You mentioned that earlier as maybe a linchpin.
That 3D chessboard is so complicated that I don't know that I'm necessarily qualified to give a decent answer on it. But you mentioned all of these different players and different people, and honestly, you know, to me, they're all performing a function of the system as a whole, and it's an international system that is largely powered by international banking and international corporations. And whether it's Hillary Clinton or John Kerry or Spiro Agnew or whoever that's Secretary of State.
Spiro Agnew reference? Nice.
You know, the people that have been in cabinet positions, they stay in cabinet positions. And
John Kerry, Hillary Clinton. It's like all these former presidential wannabes or future presidential they just bounce around. It's ridiculous.
I mean, even Donald Rumsfeld has been
30 years,
Nixon.
40 years, yeah.
So, okay, those people don't change.
Look at the hands of the people Donald Rumsfeld was shaking in those old black and white pictures. Look at what he's been.
Oh, you mean Osama bin Laden?
No, Timothy, what the hell's his name? Timothy
Geithner?
No, not Tim. Timothy Mozgov, the center for the Cleveland Cavaliers. See? No, Timothy. Hell, I don't know. Never mind. Anyway.
Anyway, so I don't see it as a political matter. I see it as a corporate matter. It's an economic matter. And ultimately, the politicians that are there, they're the same politicians and the same school of politicians that have been in place for 30 and 40 years. So whether it's this guy or that guy, it doesn't matter. It's the same incarnation of the overall theories that are fueling it, the overall ideologies. And the overall ideology, the bottom line ideology is, where can we go to make the most money? Who has the resources? What are the most expedient routes for the pipelines to run to be shipped to their market destinations? That's where Ukraine comes in. That's where control of the eastern seaboard of the Mediterranean comes in, of the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea. It all boils down to the same thing. How can we most effectively reduce the cost to increase the profit?
Not even caring how many people die in the process.
It's not about the people, it's about the profit.
It's just, there's plenty of money to be made. Just cut a deal, but find a way to make this work without it turning into this. Like, I don't know, there's plenty of money to be made. I just get so, I don't know. I don't really know if this administration or the last administration has our best interests in mind. In fact, I would say that neither of those administrations had the best interest of the American people in mind. So who are they really working for? You got to follow this back. And yes, could that be the Archons or the Anunnaki? The shape-shifting reptilian overlords that have been here for millennia, dating back to Atlantis and beyond, in the David Icke realm and the ancient alien stuff that I get into? Oh, I don't know.
Yep.
I'm just looking.
And I'm not qualified to speak on that.
I don't know, but I know the people running things like having money and power. that much I have determined. I can accurately state with clarity. They like money and power, the people that rule. But I really think that things are on the verge of overplaying their hand. If this doesn't calm the hell down, they're going to overplay their hand, and they're going to get wrapped up. They're going to end up moving all in on a hand that they're going to lose. I really don't want to see that happen, and for me, I guess that's kind of, one of my reasons why I do the media that I do. The reason that I cover the stories that I do, because when you smell a rat, you got to call it out. What if you're the first person that notices a building's on fire? You got to call it out. You got to yell. You got to ask for help while you can before the whole thing's in flames. And the days of keeping our head in the sand, I believe, sadly, are behind us. So I don't know, Alex. I'll give you last couple of words here. I mean, how do we put this back together? What do you think the answer is for people that perhaps like you and me want to do something and they don't know what, or they think they're close to thinking it's a lost cause? Why even bother? What would you say to those people?
If you think it's a lost cause, then go ahead and kill yourself now and get out of my way. Otherwise, get your ass in the street and start being the change. Because it's to the point where we can no longer sit still and continue to allow these ills to go on. The problems of the world of Israel and Iran and Ukraine may be significant, of whether or not it's the ruble or China's new currency that they're coming out with, or whatever BRICS comes out with against the petrodollar. All of that may be important, yes, but ultimately, if you don't get out into your streets locally and in your region, and I don't mean FEMA region, I just mean, wherever it's convenient for you to get to when something is going on, it's time to get out in the streets. It's time to start holding your journalists and your politicians accountable, because they are no longer representing you. They are no longer telling you the truth. And if the tide is going to change, then it's time for at least 3% of Americans to get off of the couch, turn off the TV, and get out into the world and start being a part of it.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. And whether it's, we do what we can. For a lot of us, it's not our full-time jobs. We gotta get by in life, and then we do this in our spare time instead of having fun. Like, we're doing what we can. It's like, if the Bundy Ranch is close, maybe we'll drive in and take a look and interview people. Maybe if it's a few hours away to get to Chicago and see it Homan Square, maybe we'll do that. And so, we are the new American media. The person with the cell phone, you grab, you record the police, and you get the news story, and then you hold people accountable. That's really what's going on here. You do what you can when you can, and people can empty a swimming pool quick if everyone grabs a bucket. Everyone grabs one bucket, you know what? You can move a lot.
Absolutely.
And I think the Solutions Institute is a really good place for people to check out. And give everybody one more time in the last 30 seconds or so where they can stay connected with you in all of the various mediums that you're working in, Alex.
All right. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter at the Fifth Column News, and of course at www.thefifthcolumnnews.com.
Excellent. Well, hey, man.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, at Solutions Institute as well.
Yes,
Solutions-institute.org.
Yes, solutions-institute.org. Check them out there as well. And, it was nice having our most significant conversation as of yet, Alex. Keep up the good work and keep sharing good content. We'll grab the stuff and send it along our people, and hopefully they can check out your site as well. So, hey, man, stay safe. Have a great weekend. I appreciate your time. And for everybody here at the TNAM Radio Network, check out thenewamericanmedia.com. Subscribe, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. On Twitter, we're at American_media_. Do a search on Facebook for The New American Media with spaces in between, and like the page. I appreciate you. I love you, and peace.
Your guide to the truth. thenewamericanmedia.com.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to Agree to Disagree with Brian Engelman, and this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the newamericanmedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. You know, there are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed, because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets, come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.